What's up, everybody? Welcome to part 2 of GoJo with me, Mike Golick Jr. With me, as always, still on a holdover from part 1, Brandon Newman. And Brandon, as we get ready to go for the back half of this podcast, where we'll give our NFL top 5, bottom 5 from the weekend that was. You've got the top 5 this week. I am going swimming in the gutter with the bottom 5. We've got this, that, and the third with some exciting culinary innovations. But Brandon, before we get to that, we have to address the Tom Brady-sized elephant in the room. We talked about this a lot on the podcast yesterday with our friend Charlotte Wilder, the Masked Singer theories, all these different things.
Yep.
Well, Tom Brady was back at Bucs training camp on Monday, and according to Aaron Wilson of Pro Football Network, the 11-day absence was due to a Brady family vacation to the Bahamas. He wrote, quote, "League sources indicated that Brady's time away from the team included a trip to the Bahamas and an exclusive resort, and primarily for family time with his wife, Gisele Bündchen. His commitment to family and having a personal life was at the heart of his hiatus from football, and there was no other medical emergency as speculated or other reasons." Now, Brandon, there's 2 reads on this. One, this was something we floated out as a possibility. Tom Brady retired for 40 days. Part of that was about being around his family more. And I'm sure as he made the decision to come back, there were talks about the things that he was going to have to do in order to make sure his family was still getting the attention they thought they were going to get more full time on this. The other read in this is probably what I would say if I didn't want people to know that I was the Masked Singer.
Oh, 100%. Thank you for saying it. I was like, as much as it sounds like he maybe went on vacation, Charlotte Wilder, we all talked about it, he probably just had a family vacation scheduled for during the preseason for next year as a collateral or proof that he was actually going to stay retired. It's like when you leave somewhere and leave your wallet. It's like, I'll be back. Trust me. 11 days in the Bahamas? I don't know Tom Brady very well, but it doesn't sound like Tom Brady. Sounds like he could have spent 3-4 days in the Bahamas and then found himself back in L.A. for the Masked Singer. This is just pushing me further towards the fact that we thought that we probably left last podcast with Charlotte 90% sure, maybe a high 80 that Tom Brady was a Masked Singer. I'm in the 99 club now.
Yeah, it just, something about it doesn't add up, because even if and the more I think about it and say it out loud, even if Tom Brady had made a promise to Gisele and she had booked a trip, and it's the trip of a lifetime, it's the retirement trip that they've been planning for years, as Gisele has begged Tom's teammates, anyone around him, to convince him to finally hang it up. He's got nothing left to prove. These two are so rich that had this been the case, and then Tom Brady unretires early in last offseason, with enough time for all of us to absorb this new world, for the NFL to have this massive reaction to it leading up to the NFL draft, all these different things.
Right.
You're telling me that this rich power couple with all of their means and ability couldn't call and get that vacation rescheduled for, I don't know, the gap in time after they finish up OTAs and minicamp before training camp, during OTAs and minicamp in general? That difference of weeks I don't think is going to do anything weather-wise or usually availability-wise when you've got this kind of money. Maybe I don't deal in the same worlds and these places are so exclusive, you got to lock this up in between when, like, I don't know, like Bill and Melinda Gates are getting out there and whatever Bezos is doing in the meantime. But all right, Bill Gates is divorced now, actually, so whoever he's currently dating. But
they might go out there together.
But I guess I don't know about the availability of these rich person places. But it just seems like something, knowing Tom Brady, like you said, this wouldn't happen once he decided to come back to football. That vacation would have been moved to a more manageable time.
A couple things. We don't know how these rich vacations have changed over time. Maybe they have COVID hours now, right, where you have to space out a little bit more. So maybe it could have been that. Maybe it was more hard fixed. That's less likely than the fact that, well, now that you talk about money, I feel like Gisele Bündchen may have some obligations and some things too. So maybe her schedule isn't as malleable as Tom Brady's is, which is probably a lot of source of frustration for them. And that's why she wants his ass to quit finally, which he won't, because, you know, he has his first love.
That is true. So while it feels like this is put to bed, and I think that's what people want us to believe as Tom Brady is back in camp, I think Fox is going to get exactly what they want. The ratings for The Masked Singer, when it is back, and this is the kind of thing that's hanging in the ether, are going to be through the roof. So, job well done, big television conglomerates.
It was the one thing that The Masked Singer was missing was the football audience. Every year, they try to get AB and some other people. It's like this Terry Bradshaw just saying on The Masked Singer. It's like,
Yep.
we're not going to go over there. Like, this is going to be the people that everyone else is watching doesn't know. Tom Brady might be different.
Yeah, Tom Brady. I saw this conversation going on in NBA Twitter about a take. I think it was an interview that Taylor Rooks did the other day with Jason Tatum, where the notion of Dame Lillard being a superstar, Kyrie Irving, and what a superstar player in the NBA is. Again, it's off season for them. They're doing what we've done for the last couple of bits of summer, and it was pointed out that, you know, being a superstar and being a household name are very different things. And for Tom Brady, he is certainly both in the NFL. He's transcendent enough, and especially in the last few years, has been engaging enough since he left New England in favor of Florida to be someone that people might actually follow to this. So we'll wait and see. We'll see if any tabloid pictures from Tom Brady's vacation maybe surface, something like that. Maybe Giselle posts something on Instagram if they really want to throw people off the scent a little bit. I'll have to take a look and even see if some pictures went up here. I haven't seen anything yet. You know what? In fact, let me take a look right now.
Hey, go take a little gander. And hey, check the stories. You know, those old people getting up on stories, they realize that the shit goes down, and it's harder for the media to steal it.
So the last photo that Giselle posted was 11 hours ago, but it was a happy 15th birthday post to their son, Jack, which also, Tom Brady has a 15-year-old son, which is wild to consider.
Yes,
but it very much looks like a nice scenic environment, but that could be Florida, that could be the Bahamas. I'm not sure. It's a setting that seems pretty germane to both. So, mystery still out there right now. We will wait and see, and we will keep everyone updated.
Nothing more boring than answers, Mike.
I know. You know what? And that's why I'm choosing to believe that The Masked Singer is still very much a possibility for us, Brandon. But before we get to our NFL top 5, bottom 5, if we are going to talk about going out of the country, it might be a good time to talk about our friends at Babbel. Wonderful sponsor of the podcast. We are very excited to have their support as well. Support the people that support us. And this one is super helpful because going out of the country, I will never forget, I went to Colombia 3 years ago before the pandemic hit, and I didn't take the time to do any Spanish lessons. I thought, all right, I had taken Spanish from the time I was in first grade because I grew up in Scottsdale for a little while through my junior year of college. Surely through osmosis I'll remember something, and it didn't go down like that. I got humbled very quickly when I went down there, and so when I came back to the States and when I, really had the gap in between when I left ESPN and started this job, I was like, all right, I'm going to start taking Spanish very seriously. And Babbel's come through in the clutch on this. Babbel, you only need 10 minutes to complete a lesson, so they are bite-sized doses that you can do, and it'll get you up to speed a lot faster than the alternative. Other language apps are going to use AI for the lesson plans. These have a more personal touch. Babbel lessons were created by over 150 language experts along the way. You can choose from 14 different languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, and German. Plus, their speech recognition technology is going to help improve your pronunciation. And that's one of the best parts. You attack every lesson from a bunch of different angles. You learn how to use context clues. You get definitions. You hear it spoken, both back to you and by you. It's all great to help you with it. There are so many ways to learn. In addition to the lessons, you can access podcasts, games, videos, stories, and live classes. Plus, it comes with a 20-day money-back guarantee. And right now, you can save up to 60% off your subscription. 60% when you go to babbel.com/gojo. Again, that's BABBEL.com/gojo for up to 60% off your subscription. Babbel, language for life. All right, Brandon. We had another NFL weekend come and pass. Remember, the preseason is only 3 weeks long now, so it is nut cutting time. And that means we have got to get to what is now our Tuesday staple, the NFL's top 5, bottom 5. I had the top 5 last week. You had the bottom 5. We're flipping the order this week. And so, Brandon, since we want to start people off with a good taste in their mouth, give us your NFL top 5 from the second weekend of preseason football.
Si, senor. Spanish for I'd be happy to. Obviously coming in at number, I like the whole 5 and saving it for last, but I want to get to the action. The fireworks, honestly, for me, Mike, are with rookie quarterback Pittsburgh Steelers own Kitten Hands Kenny. Okay? He looked great in his second preseason game. He looked great in his first preseason game, just not better than Mitch Trubisky in that first one. But as Mike Tomlin said famously, it's time for him to get some varsity action. So Kenny Pickett played against the Jaguars once. You're like, okay, like it's the Jaguars. But this is the guy who used to play for Pitt last year, okay? So he went 6 for 7, 76 yards, and a touchdown. One of those were just a spike. So, he could have possibly went 7 for 7. Total in the whole preseason of 2 games, 19 and 22, 171 yards, 3 touchdowns. Here's my whole thing. He looks good enough to start, but he's still a rookie, and I'm really not into starting rookies week 1, right? You got Mitch Trubisky. He's doing a good enough job. He's going to be Mitch Trubisky and do his thing and end up playing his way off the field, right? So in my opinion, the Steelers' first 4 games are just brutal. The Bengals, the Patriots, then the Browns. I say Kitten Hands Kenny is going to start for the Steelers by week 4 against the Jets. That's my number 1.
It's going to be interesting, Brandon. Anywhere else, I might concede that would be part of the plan that you would lay out for that. But Mike Tomlin, we know, is a coach that is not going to put any less than who he believes the best 11 are out on the field. True. And the way that Kenny Pickett's going right now, and I think the thing that stood out to me in this last preseason game was how he operated in the 2-minute drill at the end of the half. I think for young players, what you often see is when you get them into that hurry-up mode, and it becomes they have to operate on instinct and what they've internalized of the playbook so far, what they've internalized of that situation so far, it stops them from overthinking. It stops paralysis through analysis, and I think that's what we saw from Kenny Pickett. This is going to be an offensive line that still struggles a bit as the season goes. We've seen that through the course of the preseason. Yeah. And I think with Kenny Pickett, what you saw when he was at Pitt and what you've seen so far in the preseason is a guy who's been pretty poised when that starts to collapse. So I won't be shocked. And Mike Tomlin said as much when addressing the media that there were a number of positions where this upcoming game, that final preseason game, would have jobs up for grabs. And quarterback was absolutely one of them. So at the rate it's going, Kenny Pickett starting week 1 is looking more and more likely. If push came to shove, I would say you're probably right, and we'll see him earlier on in the season than we thought, but still not week 1. But at this point, who knows? It has definitely become a full-blown contest there in the South Side.
Yeah, I love it. And please get Kenny Pickett. I would love him against the Ravens. Let me just say that. I just feel like a good defense versus a rookie quarterback is just, feeding frenzy time. Moving on to number 2. The Dallas Cowboys have a new shiny toy, and his name is Kevontae Turpin. Mike, did you see this gentleman?
Bro, not once, but twice. The USFL's very own.
Yes, the USFL's MVP, TCU's finest, and now Jerry Jones' new Playboy centerfold, in my opinion. The Cowboys' second preseason game in SoFi, the house that Jerry Jones at best built and at worst inspired. Kevontae ran a kickoff return back for a touchdown, and then later on in the game, 86-yard punt return for a touchdown. Obviously, because he's in Dallas, there's a lot of Deion Sanders comparisons where he's actually a wide receiver. All we know is the Cowboys have something to be excited about. Dak Prescott has something to be excited about. And honestly, all of football, because when Devin Hester was doing his thing, when Deshaun Jackson was doing his thing, when that special teams means possible touchdowns, which the NFL's given us a lot more of those recently, which has been nice. I would like to see it a lot more with this gentleman. Number 2, returning it to the house all season long.
Yeah, 98-yard kick return and an 86-yard punt return. Absolutely insane. The best part about it was seeing him, Brandon, because this is a guy coming out of the USFL that was grinding for a roster spot. As someone who, at one point in time, you and I were talking about this earlier today, was a part of the Fall Experimental Football League and got to see some guys make it out of the struggle and make it back to that after toiling in anonymity in one of these side leagues. This guy, in the second half of the Dallas Cowboys game, was on the sideline, shoulder pads off, hanging out in his jersey with the vets. They had seen enough and called the fight. Because as we know about preseason, especially if you're a guy who's a position player outside of a guy that's not an offensive or defensive lineman that can run on the core four special teams. You make splash plays on teams, you are finding your way onto the team, and Turpin did just that. It is Turpin time.
Yep. We've seen a lot of guys do that, and those are the real ballers. Those are the athletes, if you will. So I'm excited to see him. I mean, honestly, it'll be nice to watch the Cowboys. I want to say outside of offense, the defense, they had some pretty splash plays, but whatever. Special teams, the Cowboys finally got a guy. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes is still really good at doing whatever he wants with the football. Obviously, it's preseason. But Patrick, man, he just looks good. It reminds me of you. He's got a whole new receiving core, right? So if you are Patrick Mahomes, I am, and all the people in your media partner are your new receiving core. As long as we stand behind you and everyone knows that we're with you, we're in a really good position. Right? Like Patrick Mahomes now has options. It seems like they just went out and got a bunch of different Travis Kelce's, some tight ends, some wide receivers, just sure hands for Patrick Mahomes to throw his little sidearm throws to. And it seems like there's going to be still no stopping Patrick Mahomes, at least in Arrowhead.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes has been spreading the love around. You're seeing some very Ewing theory tendencies going on with the Chiefs where no Tyreek Hill, but with Juju Smith-Schuster and Valdez-Scantling and the other guys there, a lot of spreading the ball around in the preseason. Still the same brand of Patrick Mahomes. Oh my God, did he just do that plays? Very cool stuff for him. Banner weekend too. Debuts and is now has a new Fortnite skin in his honor, joining the list of a couple of other NFL players and high-profile athletes. And was announced over the weekend that at his alma mater, Texas Tech, he will be enshrined in the Texas Tech Football Athletics Hall of Fame and their football Ring of Honor in the stadium. So Mahomes had himself a weekend, there's no doubt.
You love to see it. And he's just getting started. I just love how he's just focused on making that team better. I really don't want to see him play for anyone else the entire time he's there. But that's looking too far in the future. Let's look at this last weekend. Coming in at number 4, Kyler Murray scores in the preseason as a play caller. He had to take his hat off. He had to take his helmet off. But one thing that was he had with him, Mike, if you noticed, he had a gamer headset on. He had a gamer headset on the sideline that I'm imagining he brought from home to get into his Call of Duty action. He just can't put it down. I don't know if he's trolling us. I don't know what the deal is with that, but Kyler Murray can call plays. And congratulations to him, and I hope he and his stepfather, Cliff Kingsbury, play nice for the rest of this season.
Yeah, so this had started off as something that people thought Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals were using to mock or put Kyler in a bad position, but they've talked more about it. It's a way to keep him engaged in these games. We know whatever you believe about the study clause, it's a way to get him to engage with the subject matter and the playbook a little differently, to think about the big picture even further beyond just what a quarterback has to know on every play. But to your point about how well it went, the Cardinals had 3 points before that. There were 2 scoring drives put together with Kyler Murray calling the shots. So, yeah, it was a big-time one. Trace McSorley, the former Penn State and Baltimore Ravens quarterback, now over on the Arizona sideline, was the beneficiary of that. So it was cool. He looked into it, and I think this is more of what people expected with this exercise. It being a good story that lends well to everybody involved and not something to shame your star quarterback.
Exactly. Regardless of that's what happened in the end. And, he's going to catch strays all season long over that homework video game thing. Yes. Now, finally, Mike, and I'm not going to spend a long time on this. I have big news. Kyle Hamilton is back. Big trust. Got a good preseason grade for him. He was doing a lot of things actively, not only on defense, but on special team as well. You talked about making splashes in the special teams. He's blocking for punt. He's out there making moves. I think he was disengaged with a tight end and made a tackle. Like wide receivers couldn't block him. He's showing how big of a frame he is and how fast he is and how hard he is to block. Got turned around a couple times chasing the ball and defending, but I think he'll get his feet under him when it comes to that, because obviously the speed of the NFL is so much different than probably what he's seen at Notre Dame. But he's got the stride. He can do it. I'm just happy to see right before we get into the actual real game that the Ravens fans, as well as Kyle Hamilton himself, is seeing himself make good plays and knows that he is worthy of that top round pick that he came off the board for the Baltimore Ravens, and hopefully can make great things happen for us all season long on defense.
Yeah, I know first-round picks are usually expected to start right away, and some people could read it as a negative that right now it looks like Marcus Williams and Chuck Clark are going to be the starting safety tandem there, but I think it ends up being a positive. We know the legacy in that safety room is pretty intense. That defense requires a lot of you from the neck up, especially in that position. So while Kyle can come on the field now as a third safety in certain packages, they can use him creatively. You mentioned he's going to be on teams. I think this is all going to be a net positive for an incredibly impressive athlete and a guy who was always lauded for how high his football IQ was every time you talk to people at Notre Dame about him. So I think he's still going to be a great fit there, and I'm glad he's going to get a chance to really do that and not have everything dumped on his plate at once as far as his role in that defense. So electric top 5, Brandon. Hell of a weekend. Now it's time to mess it all up. Let's go to the bottom 5 from the NFL weekend that was. And I'm going to go 5-1 on this since we basically did that now. It'll be a perfect palindrome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I love
5, 4,
it.
3, 2, 1. Want to start off with this one because you mentioned the Dallas Cowboys and what they've got in Turpin Time, their star returner. The Dallas Cowboys also got good news on the financial front that comes at the expense of one former president. The Cowboys are now the first team worth $8 billion, according to Front Office Sports.
Wow.
If you remember, back in 1983, Donald Trump nearly bought them for $50 million, but instead purchased a USFL franchise that folded 2 years later and said, quote, "I feel sorry for the poor guy who's going to buy the Cowboys. He'll be known to the world as a loser." We can debate a lot of things about Jerry Jones' reputation and make a lot of jokes about the Cowboys' record, especially since Jimmy Johnson and company all left town. But the one thing you can't debate is that the money talks, and it speaks pretty loudly here from Jerry Jones' super yacht. So that's a tough look for one man who decided to make a bad business decision.
Yeah, he's also Jerry Jones is also in the Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame. Not that it makes, not that validates him not being an idiot, but it says something.
Yeah, no, listen, it's a pretty solid vote in his favor. So just thought it'd be worth in there. Every once in a while, those kind of numbers, when they come out, there's always someone that was on the other side of that situation that didn't invest in Apple stock before it blew up. Number 4, Brandon, this one I legitimately feel bad for Sam Darnold. It was announced on Monday that Baker Mayfield will be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers September 11th in their opener against the Browns. So revenge game for Baker Mayfield right off the top. Sam Darnold took this one in stride. He said, quote, "We were fighting for the starting job. Every day was our game day out there during camp, especially as we got in these last couple weeks. Obviously, it didn't go my way. Coach named Baker the starter. My mindset is it is what it is. For me right now, I'm going to do everything I can to support Baker and get him ready to play the game." Went on to say he didn't think the contest was slanted in Baker's favor, thought he had a fair shake, and it just didn't work out. And Brandon, while Sam Darnold still wants to be a starting quarterback, as he stated somewhere in this league, I think this is the end of those days. A quarterback who came out with a lot of promise and a lot of flaws from USC, went to the team where hope goes to die in the New York Jets, and now has been through too many coaches and coordinators early on in his career to have a real fighting chance. I think this is Sam Darnold officially being relegated to the world of backup quarterbacks who can still make an impressive living in this league, but a starting role based on what's happened to him so far just seems like it is now in the past.
Yeah, I mean, this may be where he was going to end up anyways, but for example, I like Trace McSorley a lot more than him. He just has a little bit more swag to him, even in the Cardinals uniform, and he was taken in the 6th round. So usually when you get those first-round picks, especially at quarterback, you kind of want them to be franchise guys, especially if you get drafted to the Jets. He wasn't that guy. It was debatable if he had that dog in him. I'm glad that he's having this disposition about how to help Baker move forward, because I'm sure he'll get his time. But I don't want to say. I hope this isn't the last we saw of Sam Darnold, because those flashes that we saw his rookie year, especially against the Lions, I just want to see that version of him again one day.
Yeah, man. Prognosis doubtful. Again, I legitimately feel for the guy, but Baker Mayfield now going to be your starter. Something that I expected going into this season once he got to camp down there. We talked to Anish Shroff, the Panthers play-by-play announcer on radio. And, since then, when it was a legitimate competition, Baker went and took the bull by the horns. Now they got a chance. Brandon, number 3 on the NFL bottom 5. The NFL's out here snitching and drug testing our punters, our big-legged sons. So we know that this is a podcast that celebrates Matt Araiza, the punt god in Buffalo, who, based on roster moves made, Buffalo releasing their other punter in the competition, Matt Araiza now going to be your starting punter, more than likely, for the Buffalo Bills, as he calls himself the 4th down quarterback on that team. We, over the weekend, had another punter come to the party. This would be Saints punter Blake Gillikin, who went out and absolutely routed a punt, an 81-yard blast that started with the Saints backed up on their own 7-yard line and kicked it with some wind assist in the air to the Packers' 13-yard line. Now, it bounced back for a touchback, but the message already got sent. He was a guy who, as a rookie in 2021, huge leg, 83 punts for a 47.7-yard average. He was awesome. The next day, he tweeted out a text message that he received from the NFL informing him that he has been randomly selected for a drug test for performance-enhancing drugs. And Brandon, these drug tests are hardly ever random. The NFL is threatened by the legs on these young weapons, these young special teams gods, and I, for one, won't stand for it here. I don't know why when punters start doing great things and trying to join the revolution we've seen in the NFL of bigger, faster, longer, all these things, that now all of a sudden the NFL is going to decide that they don't like big, loud American punts. It's a shame. It's a travesty. And I hope that we see this witch hunt for our large-legged sons end soon.
I'm with you, Mike. This is a travesty. It's bullshit, quite literally. And they hating. It's the NFL quite literally hating. And we know these drug tests are not random, like you said. I remember in college, I did not partake in anything, and I got drug tested almost every time because they just needed X amount of scholarship athletes drug tested. And they know I was, eating Pop-Tarts at night, not smoking bowls. So it's not random at any level. And I hope he's vindicated.
I hope we see justice for Blake Gillikin on this drug testing front. These are baseless charges and accusations, even though they're not accusations. That's just supposedly random testing. But anyway, support your punters here. 4th down mattering again, even though I'm a person who is very pro never kicking it for almost any reason and going for it on most 4th downs. You can talk me into the occasional 81-yard bomb. I am a man of taste. Brandon, number 2.
I used to love seeing you on the wedge, taking those blocks on punt.
Years off my life on the goddamn punt wedge in college. That was one of the worst innovations in modern football history. Burn it down. Burn it down. Brandon, number 2. This was and what became a 2-day foray into trying to figure out who knew what cut blocks were legal when. So we had unfortunate news come out of the Giants and Bengals preseason game. The Giants rookie defensive pass rusher, Kayvon Thibodeau, one of their top picks out of Oregon, suffered a sprained MCL, the team announced on Monday, after initial testing on his right knee. He's expected to miss 3 or 4 weeks, according to ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter. His ACL and meniscus are intact. They're hopeful that he still might be ready for the opener against the Titans on September 11th. But Brandon, what had happened on this play, if anyone missed it, Thibodeau was the defensive end on what would have been the left side of the defensive formation here. He's on the end of the line of scrimmage, and as the run was going the opposite direction, a tight end comes across the formation and has the responsibility to block him. We see this play happen all the time. It's called split zone in most teams and in most, the way we talk about it. Right. And the tight end's responsible for cutting off the backside. He can do that by either hitting the guy straight up, or as we see plenty of times, if you look and go Google split zone, if you search it on Twitter, you'll find plenty of highlights where tight ends go back and cut the defensive lineman that's on the end of the line of scrimmage. It was unfortunate. Thibodeau didn't turn his body and brace for it in the right way, and it launched this unreal debate. There were so many people legitimately who cover this sport who were saying that this was dirty, that this player, Thad Moss, the former LSU tight end, who is now in his third year trying to keep hanging on and being a part of this league, went back over there, calling him every name under the sun, saying it was a dirty place and there's no place for that, all these things. And Brandon, you former defensive lineman, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is something, my brother was a tight end. I blocked up front for long enough to know this is a pretty accepted part of football. It's still a very legal part of football in the NFL. And so as long as that's a tool in his belt, Thad Moss is trying to make a roster spot. He's going up against a high-level athlete and a first-round pick. I understand it's the preseason, but I've gotten mixed responses from former pros on if there's any sort of unwritten rule on that front, and I can't see any consensus. It is something that's, listen, probably not the best thing in the world, but when you're, again, fighting for your football life and having to use every tool in the belt, I don't fault Thad Moss for doing something that's legal, understood, and accepted. It was unfortunate. Football's a violent game, and sometimes these angles change quickly in a way that can affect outcomes like this. It sucks that Thibodeau's going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. Hopefully he will be back even sooner than that and gets to play a long, healthy season. But what Thad Moss did wasn't a dirty play, period.
It wasn't a dirty play. I don't even think it's unfortunate, to be honest with you. It's one of those things that a lot of people like myself who find themselves just surprisingly on the other side of the offensive line of scrimmage, like I'm in the backfield now, this is a TFL opportunity, and you don't realize that you're scotch-free for a real reason because somebody is coming to clean your ass up, right? And obviously, Kayvon Thibodeau, you would think that he would be aware enough, and obviously he's not to blame, but he's to blame in the way that he should have played that block better. Like he could have. You saw him kind of dip his shoulder, but he didn't completely commit to it. If he would have dipped his shoulder completely, that's how you're taught to take on that block. You opposite arm it, and you continue to contain so you can keep the outside because obviously he's going to be on the outside, and the play probably will bounce outside. So, yes, I don't think it was a dirty play. It's unfortunate, but it's just like a spray bottle with a cat or like hitting your dog on the nose with a newspaper once they poop in the house. Like injuries or pain, like that tells you to look out for something. Like this is the last time that he gets caught with this split zone play, and he'll see a lot of it in the NFL, especially after they saw that he just got with it in the preseason.
This is something I know I saw Dean Blandino, who obviously was an NFL official for a long time and works for Fox, say. This is one of the areas where, as the rules change between college and pro, there are some differences in the language in this rule, college to pro. And it's a reminder, we need more of these rules to match up. I don't know why we have so many of these small differences that show up college to pro that just end up not having these guys all the way ready for what they're going to see on Sundays. So, again, hope Kayvon Thibodeau has a speedy recovery. What Thad Moss did was not dirty. We can have a conversation if you want to take that out of the rules, the way we have some other cut blocks in certain situations in the game. But right now it's on the table, and he gets to use it. Brandon, number one is no surprise to anyone here. We talked about it yesterday. That distinction goes to Jon Gruden. Because remember, over this weekend on the Gronkcast for UFC 278, UFC President Dana White claimed that he helped put a deal in place that would have brought Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski to the Las Vegas Raiders back in 2020, but then Raiders coach Jon Gruden blew up the deal. We remember the clip from The Shop where Tom Brady talked about a team in free agency that was looking at him and then backed off at the last minute, and he said, "You're going to keep this motherfucker over me." And now the picture has become abundantly clear, but I think Raiders fans are going to carry this in their hearts for a long time this season of what could have been if Jon Gruden hadn't taken so much from that franchise.
Knock on wood if you hear me. I am not in the business of calling any Super Bowl champion, coach, or player dumb, but you are really dumb. Jon Gruden, you are really dumb right now. You look really stupid. That is so dumb. Like he really, like I didn't recognize the lengths of how dumb he was.
It was one of those things where, looking back on it, you would love to at some point, and I feel like we're probably due for Jon Gruden trying to chirp back and clap back at a lot of people based on his departure from the NFL.
Yeah.
But I wonder if we'd ever get an answer as to why that would have happened and why you would have potentially turned that down. We never thought that Derek Carr and Jon Gruden had a relationship that was lasting or sustainable. It doesn't seem like a franchise that's ever been married to him. Why you would want to turn down Tom Brady at that current form would be just an explanation I'd be very interested in hearing.
Mike, it would have saved not only the franchise, but his job. His job that he was emailing people from the Washington football team, now known as the Commanders, things that he shouldn't have been emailing. That's one of the reasons why he got kicked out. And obviously, is he still suing the NFL?
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure on that, to be honest.
So, I mean, Jon Gruden's got a lot of stuff on his plate. That's what I'm saying. He's got a lot of fights with the NFL. I don't know if he wants to fight Dana White, the overlord of UFC, as Charlotte Wilder called him yesterday. But I've always kind of leaned back on the fact that Jon Gruden must know more about football than a lot of us. And I don't know, Mike. I'm starting to backtrack that one a little bit. You know what I mean? Maybe Jay had a little bit more to do. No, obviously that's his little brother. But I don't know. I don't know where Jon Gruden went wrong. He used to be on ESPN coaching up quarterbacks while they were going into the draft because he was the quarterback czar, and now he can't tell a good quarterback if you bite him in his ass.
I tell you what, man, you're right. If you were going to go Marvel what if on this, I wonder if Jon Gruden ever looks back at his life when he was making damn near what I think was like $10 million a year doing Monday Night Football with Sean McDonough. We've seen the way that salaries for analysts have exploded in the broadcast booth post Tony Romo's big deal. So who knows what you would have been able to pull out of there, especially after that announcement I think it was last year, about the upcoming Super Bowls, 2 of which will be on ABC, which is, I think, part of the reason why they went after the Aikman and Buck booth. If you had been Jon Gruden sitting there, you'd have been sitting pretty, just slapping prospects with pool noodles, going through your thing, the Fired Football Coaches Association of America and all that shit. Right. That guy, while he's still sitting at home with a ton of money and probably not a ton of regrets, there's got to be maybe part of him that looks back and wonders if that could have been a lot easier on a lot of different avenues for him. But you don't get to play that game anymore, at least not yet. We haven't figured out alternate timelines or multiverse theory well enough to pull that off. But Brandon, that's top 5, bottom 5 from the NFL weekend that was. Again, you can always tweet us at GoJo Show on Twitter. Download, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And let us know how we did. Let us know if we missed anything, if your favorite team got hosed in any of this conversation. But, Brandon, with all that in mind, do you know what time it is?
Oh, are you serious? Listen, let me just say this before I am going off of the fact that I want to sing this song and not the fact that it works. So we're going to see if I can squeeze a this, that, and the third into this right now.
There we go. Let it ride, big man.
It's really good to hear your voice saying my name. It sounds so sweet. Coming from the lips of an angel, hearing those words, it makes me weak. Let it die, never wanna say goodbye. But girl, you make it hard to be faithful. With this stuff.
You could have had it with this, that, and the third. Come on, man.
Oh,
you could have landed that plane hinder on a Tuesday. Look at God.
I didn't have it. You guys heard it. I didn't have the tone in my head. I didn't find the song. I couldn't get it or whatever. Thank you, Mike. Let's move on.
You did your best, Brandon, as we will try to here too. And let's start with this, Brandon, because courtesy of Shams and the fine folks over at The Athletic, we have yet another team that's entered into the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. Reportedly, the Memphis Grizzlies, league sources tell The Athletic, are now showing some interest here. They've made inquiries in the Nets about Durant. They've got 5 first-round picks, 4 of which are unprotected, that they could probably use here. Now, Zach Kleiman, their vice president of basketball operations, has said that they're not going to make Jaren Jackson Jr. or Desmond Bane available in that potential offer here. But Brandon, we had a while back when Durant kind of was linked to being on the market. John Morant tweeted easy money. A lot of people read into that. So part of me would be bummed on this because we've talked a lot about team building on this podcast when it's come to the NBA, and what the Grizzlies have put together has been so wholesome and so holistically done with a young team who's not afraid of shit. But again, when Kevin Durant gets freed up, you kind of mortgage all of that with the potential for what he brings to the table. But I would be sad to mourn the loss of this Grizzlies team if they did ship a bunch of those guys out of there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like I don't mourn them. This is what you do. You got to get those players to be valuable so they can be pieces. I think you keep Desmond Bain, and that's it. Everyone else is disposable when it comes to Kevin Durant sweepstakes.
Yeah, I get it. Listen, that's why we've seen so many teams' names pop up, because it's Kevin bleeping Durant. And when he's healthy and when he's out there, he's one of maybe the three best players in basketball. I totally get that. Doesn't mean I can't miss the Grizzlies, because they became my favorite part of the NBA playoffs this last postseason. Brandon, let's get to that. And that was something I mentioned the other day. Game of Thrones universe is back on our television. House of the Dragon premiered this weekend, and if anyone still thought it was possible, and I don't know why I said that with a lisp, if anyone still thought it was possible that people had really defected away from Game of Thrones, let's put that to bed. The HBO announced that the first episode of House of the Dragon recorded the network's biggest premiere of all time, with 9.986 million viewers across linear and HBO Max streaming on Sunday night in the US alone. For a frame of reference, the original Thrones series ended with 13.7 million live viewers for linear channels back in 2019. Brandon, it checked all the boxes for what you would expect from a Game of Thrones. I won't go any spoilers on this yet, but I really think they're in a great position. They got a lot of things in motion and did a lot of heavy lifting narratively on this first episode without it looking heavy at all. And that was always what was the hallmark of this series. A lot of dense subject material. George R.R. Martin is back in the fold on this, because these are books he's actually finished, unlike the rest of the series. Stop your bitching, George. But because we've got all that, I really think this has a chance. And with a $20 million an episode budget, it damn well better hit, because good God.
Yeah, I can't wrap my mind around that, but I can't wait to watch the series. And I do feel like, America's a bit of sheep. We're a bit sheepish. All the people that were very upset about that last episode when the series ended originally. It seems like 9 million is fair. I think the rest of them is going to catch up. Like, I imagine there's millions of us that are going to tune in on demand.
Yeah, I think those final streaming numbers are going to be pretty large. You probably saw the viral video of everyone in one New York apartment all watching Game of Thrones at the same time that you could see based on the light refracting on their windows from the TV. It's so nice. And Sunday nights have been in good hands. Like, we've talked about it, Issa Rae and what she did with Insecure. HBO always has plenty of great programming, but Sunday nights with something in the Game of Thrones universe somewhere in Westeros being back on the screen just feels right, just feels comfortable. Glad to have it back. Brandon, let's get to the third. McDonald's is trying some freaky stuff. They're bringing one of their most popular UK sandwiches back across the pond. For a limited time, McDonald's is testing the Chicken Big Mac at select locations in Miami. Beginning later this month, the chicken patties for hamburger patties will be available as supplies last. They said they're looking for ways to give their fans more ways to enjoy classic menu items. And starting later this month at select Miami restaurants, they're going to test that new twist on an old favorite. I've already texted Jess Smetana and alerted her and Billy Gill with our friends over at the Levitard show. And I have put them on this mission, because while I am not in Miami and probably won't be able to get there in time for this, they can do the Lord's work and let us know if the Chicken Big Mac is hitting or not.
Yeah, honestly, to be real with you guys, the McDonald's international menu hits 9 times out of 10. They usually bring it up once a year with maybe like a really interesting McFlurry or cheeseburger with fries on it or something weird. This Chicken Big Mac is intriguing, but it also sounds gross.
Well, listen, much like The Masked Singer, where we have the potential to vote for maybe a masked Tom Brady along the way as the show gets set to return, you can make your voice heard, because they basically said not everything that fans in the overseas market works over here in the U.S. market. They're going to go based on the feedback from customers. And so, Miami, we're counting on you, which is a weird thing to say. But if this thing hits, we need you to make your voice heard, because I'm in Southern California and I'd like to be able to taste this and at least decide for myself. So keep an eye out. If you are a fan of this show and you are in the Miami area and you feel like going and sending us a review, put it on video. We will find a way to get you on the podcast with the review of the Chicken Big Mac at GoJo Show on Twitter. If you want to make that happen, we would greatly appreciate that work. But Brandon, We greatly appreciate everyone making it through not one but two parts of this podcast. If you enjoy it, and if you've enjoyed the new two-part structure, we're trying something out. We want to try and make this the best listening experience we can for you. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review. Unsubscribe, resubscribe. Take your friend's phone, subscribe on their phone, and leave us a 5-star rating and a review, and tell us what you think of all that. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.